Well, hi everybody, it's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things from the world of football and or soccer, whatever you like that we thought were interesting. I'm Tom Rennie, alongside me is MLS legend and US men's national team broadcaster, so he's got to say Pochettino's great. It's Brian Dunny Dunseth. Hey buddy, all right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different conversation. I feel like you being a West Ham fan, you got to say, Potter sucks. Potter's out.
He does suck, but he's still in, sadly.
Yeah.
If there's any truth that Nuno wants the job, and I don't know if that is true, get him because
He'd be great.
He might understand that you've got to work on defending corners every now and then. Give it a whirl.
I texted you. I texted you.
Dunny is the worst person in the world when it comes to being your friend when your team are losing. But the good news is he's a Man United fan, and so we get our revenge in swiftly and regularly.
Very easily.
But I couldn't watch the game at the weekend because I was working in the morning. I had to go to a wedding in the afternoon. I did see the disallowed goal, which was ludicrous, like it should have been given, but there we are. I was quite pleased it wasn't. But Dunny texted me, and he was like something or other along the lines of how bad it was. And I was just like, it's a corner, isn't it? It's a corner. They've done a corner again. We'll get to it because I want to talk about that. I don't want to waste it at the very top of the program. The top of the program is for me to plead to our listeners to this program. So firstly, if you're listening to us on Apple, where the majority of our listeners do, you could also listen on Spotify as well. So if you're on Apple, subscribe on Spotify. If you're on Spotify, subscribe on Apple. And both places give us 5-star reviews. If you can write a review, please write a review for us and let us know that you're enjoying the program. We also take suggestions for things you'd like us to do, not do. We've been considering doing interviews with people and things like that, but we also can't be asked. So let us know if that's something you would like us to do in the comments. You can also follow us on YouTube as well. We post the show in full and previous shows too. So get onto YouTube. Everyone is listening to podcasts on YouTube now. And we are just getting into that game. We want to be in your algorithm. So when you're looking for good football content on YouTube, you'll find us if you follow us, and it'll recommend things that are similar as well. So please do that. And follow us on social media as well. We don't post very much, frankly, but you can find when the show has been published if you go on Elon Musk's health site. And I'm just calling it X now because Twitter really is dead. It's not that anymore. It used to be fun. And now I just kind of keep it around for the transfer window. So follow us on there anyway. At least then you'll get the show published to you in your inbox nice and swiftly. Right, there's your housekeeping. A few things to talk about, and I think like the main topic I think today is about managerial philosophy, and I think it bleeds into a few conversations. It's Amorim, it's Potter, it's Russell Martin, it's Nuno, it's a lot of different names that are kind of doing the rounds at the minute. And there's a few sort of players I want to talk about today as well, and a few stories. But I mean, let's start with the Manchester United of it, because I was sort of taken aback this weekend, Dunny, not by the fact they lost to City, because you can lose to City, but some of the post-match comments, and then the fact, well, he is now statistically provably the worst Man United manager in terms of wins since the Second World War, which is apt, being as we're just before the Third World War, so it's perfect timing. But so two bits of this, and I wanted to get your view on what's going on here. So this is the Ruben Amorim quote after the Man City game. He said, "I accept we don't have a record you should have at Manchester United. There are lots of things that you have no idea what happened, but I'm not going to change my philosophy. I play my way, and I'm going to play my way." He has, if you take all competitions, a 36.17% win record. That is the worst in all competitions of any manager in United history since 1945. In the league, it's around 28%. It's around 8 wins in 31 in the league, or something like that. I think that's right. I haven't got it in front of me, but I think that's right. It is a record that if you were the West Ham manager, you'd be on the chopping block, and Graham Potter basically has this record, and he is on the chopping block. If you were the Wolverhampton Wanderers manager, you would be on the chopping block, and so forth. So
if he didn't have Erik ten Hag's points calculated at the start of the season, he would be in a relegation battle. So yeah, if we're setting the tone, let's set the tone.
Well, let's start with that. I mean, are they in a relegation battle for you? Would you put them in it?
Well, I think right now there's. I mean, let's do this. Let's simplify the conversation, because you have a very cavalier and confident coach that's refusing to change his ideological, theoretical approach to how he sees the game. And that could be naive. That could be visionary. Who knows? But you know what the difference between Arsenal, Fulham, Grimsby Town, Burnley, and now Manchester City is? The only difference is a 90th plus 7 penalty against Burnley that gives Manchester United the full 3 points. Everything else we were told is going to be different this year. And we could talk about the eyeball test and we could talk about statistics, but the reality is this game is about winning and losing. That's it. And in a Manchester derby, I agree with Roy Keane. Not a single yellow card was shown to a Manchester United player. We are in a different time. We're in a different space. We're in a different rarefied air in this conversation of, two teams tucking in and getting, setting the tone, and the unadulterated hatred for, I saw some video and it was like Phil Neville and Gary Neville, Everton against Manchester United walking out of the tunnel. They refused to look at each other.
Yeah.
Refused to acknowledge and look at each other as captains of their respective team. It's just a different game. Everyone's like, yo, what's up? Dabbing, hugs, good to see you, bro. It's just it's a different mindset.
But they are doing it at the very top level. You watch the Inter Barca game or Paris Saint-Germain's Champions League run. It doesn't have to be like that. So why is it like that? Why is that happening?
Just culture. Yeah, it's just culture. It's a respect. I think it's a separation of. I think it's a show of control. It's a separation for the players to not be manipulated by the press, not be manipulated by the fan base. I struggle to comprehend a world in which Barcelona and Real Madrid don't lump each other up and down the field. I think there's still a generational hatred. I actually had a really fascinating conversation about Liverpool being able to poach players from Manchester versus Manchester City or Manchester United being able to poach players from Liverpool. Because there is a cultural thing about growing up in the city. There is a dynamic about generations of families growing up in your respective city versus maybe your first generation coming to London and you find yourself playing for Chelsea or Arsenal, and then Manchester United comes calling and you're like, okay, cool, we'll go to Manchester, because there's not that generation of family in the city. Whereas that conversation of, different characteristics, different players, different backgrounds being going to other cities. It was a really fascinating take. And then you get into the kind of the business side of things where, these clubs, there's such a divide between academy to first team. And then you throw in the conversations of sporting directors that are brought in to identify talent, not develop talent. And so what does that do? Well, then the business aspect becomes, you're thinking of profit and sustainability. You're thinking about taking these academy kids and selling them and taking that full profit back in to then be able to offset purchasing players from Africa and South America, the United States, France, and bringing them in. So really, really fascinating conversation. But all of that I've had in the last week then leads me into these moments where you have a Manchester derby and you're looking at the players on the field and you're thinking to yourself, who's like Manchester blue? Who's Manchester red? And like when Phil Foden finds the back of the net, you see that run and you understand what it means. It's a different conversation. So I listen, we watch.
But foreign players can buy in as well. There's been lots of great foreign players. You haven't got to have been born in Manchester to enter the Manchester derby, right?
I agree with that. No, I listen, I agree with that.
But this is what's interesting about what you said there about the culture of it, because there are teams that do get stuck in. And this is why sometimes Roy Keane sounds a bit man out of time, right? And I agree with your point. You're absolutely right. This era is not that era. But there are still games where, look, it's not go lump someone up in the air to make yourself feel better, but it's an intensity in your play. It's getting tired. It's chasing. It's pulling a shirt. It's having a go at them. It's having a go at the referee. It's looking like you care. And it's not just a Man United thing. There's a lot of teams at the moment that I feel like are just going through the motions. I'm not seeing the guts of it. And there are ways to show that you're intense, and there's ways to show effort without booting someone, right? And we're not seeing that from a lot of these teams.
Yeah, but listen, like I'm a huge Ugarte fan. Do you think if he's playing for Uruguay and they're playing against Brazil or Argentina, he's not filleting everybody around him?
Yeah.
I mean, I've spent the last 2-3 weeks being told that Casemiro is the undisputed starter in the midfield alongside Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes. I've also been told that Kobe Mainoo can't step on the field because the only player he's competing with is Bruno Fernandes.
So,
Yeah, you see me. So anyways, I mean, listen, I struggle to comprehend a world in which it makes sense to bring on Harry Maguire as your first substitute in the 62nd minute. I struggle to comprehend the, and by the way, in this moment, if you think about if Cunha is available and Mason Mount's available, what does that mean for Sesko and what does that mean for Ahmad? Um, I would point out that when you go back to that Foden goal, if you are going to tell me that there's a benefit in the attacking phase of play for Bruno to sit so deep, I would say counterpoint, Bruno is a ball watcher defensively and doesn't stick with his man, making secondary runs coming out of the midfield and popping into the box. How many times has he been culpable and responsible for goals being scored? I would point out that if you're going to have a moan and have a go at Lenny Euro post-match for being in the wrong position, I would say, well, what about De Ligt and Luke Shaw not dealing with Erling Haaland on the slip pass? I would also bring up, if you're going to bring up Harry Maguire in halftime, why is he trying to win a 50-50 ball by keeping possession and hitting a flat ball to the left has to bypass two midfielders that then gets cut out, that plays Erling Haaland in behind, and you're the deepest defender who's already 10 yards in the attacking phase of play. So I just, and the statistics and all, my problem is it's starting to feel very similar to Erik ten Hag, where post-match, there's so much truth and there's so much honesty, but there's deliberate moments in which you're trying to convince a fan base with so much words, and yet my eyes aren't seeing what you're trying to tell me. So, yeah, by the way, that guy Donnarumma probably needs a couple weeks to adapt to the level of,
Oh, poor James Trafford. What a wally. What a wally making the move to Man City. Like, just ending your own career like that for a year.
But on top of that, the flip side is if Donnarumma comes in and starts immediately with one training session, why doesn't Lemans start immediately? And you go back to Bayern Deer, who can never make a big save.
This is it, isn't it? Like, all this, like, you got blood players in. Don't buy players that ain't ready. Don't buy players you don't think can play in the first team. Like, so this goes back to a broader point. So I want to put, like, I want to hash something out with you and see what you think about it. Because I've been thinking about it today from something Adrian Heath said to us on the football show today, but more broadly, sort of my thoughts on Ruben Amorim and this sort of like sneaky football world we're currently in of sort of like, oh no, I saw him play in the Portuguese second division and I think he's got a high ceiling, you know, all that. Sorry, Tim. But like, so firstly, I genuinely believe that Ruben Amorim is a very intelligent man, a very intelligent coach, and I think his book on tactics would be spectacular. I would love to read his book on what he thinks individual players do, what he thinks a holding midfielder is, what he thinks a dual 8-6 is, what he thinks blah, 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 a wing back is. Love to read it.
Great PowerPoint. Yeah.
I think his PowerPoint would be incredible. I think his books on tactics would be incredible. I think he'd be an incredible person to have in your management team when you're kind of setting up your plan. But there is that whole thing about like the theory and the execution, right? There is theoretical physics and there is the putting stuff together and making it go bang of physics, right? There's practical physics. And this is where we are with someone like Ruben Amorim. And more broadly on this, it almost seems like a cultural thing. It is Graham Potter, and I want to do some on him later, but like it's also Russell Martin at Rangers, who's struggling hard right now in Scotland, who came up with Southampton last season or season before, and was so confident in his sort of like style that he thought Southampton would stay up. They were never going to stay up trying to do that. It's almost what Vincent Kompany did at Burnley. And Sean Dyche made this point not too long ago, right? Like, I try to keep Burnley in the Premier League, whereas Vincent Kompany played pretty patterns. I couldn't get another job, but he went to Bayern Munich. That was Sean Dyche there. Thank you for joining us, Sean.
Yeah.
I'm not dating Kerry Katona, but I do know her. Yeah, Sean Dyche. A little bit like a Muppet, whatever. But like, the broad theme of this, Dunny, is philosophy, thought process, and it goes to something Adrian Heath said today, which is where I'm bringing this back to. I'm weaving. But Adrian Heath said, you know, he's been a top manager in America, he's a title winner in England, right? This is a man who's entrenched in football.
Yeah.
And he told us he was doing this Q&A with young coaches. He said he was on for an hour with these like kids who are, they're like 16 to 25, right? So they're young, they're getting into the game.
Yeah.
And they're talking about philosophy and what I want to do and how I want to play and all this stuff, which is all important, right? But then he said he stopped it after an hour and said, guys, not one of you has asked me about winning. None of you have spoken to me about winning.
Yeah.
And it really struck me. It really linked well with Ruben Amorim, I'm not going to change my philosophy. Graham Potter, style of play over the substance. Russell Martin taking Southampton down on the altar of his I play football this way. And I'm all for style of play. I'm all for that conversation. But it feels like winning is the only thing that matters in this particular level. It don't matter for the youth team coach. It don't matter even in MLS really to a degree because there's no relegation. You know, there are loads of great jobs in football where winning doesn't matter. Premier League manager ain't it. And I feel like there's too many of them that don't seem to be thinking, you know, did we win? If we didn't, then we have f***ed it. Sorry, Tim.
It's just a different world, man. It's a different world. And I go back and I had this conversation with Muller this morning on Counterattack was, you know, you think about when Jose Mourinho came into Manchester United on the backside of Louis van Gaal, and he got him to second place and he won Europa League. And he said afterwards, it's the best coaching job that I've ever done in my career. And we're like, f off. Sorry, Tim. You know, like, that's not true. You've won literally everything. And it turned out to be true. I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer ending in second position. I still would love to run a real time what would have been his continued, like where he was going without the addition of Cristiano Ronaldo. That's not a shot at Cristiano Ronaldo. I just would have loved to see where he was going had he not had to implement Cristiano Ronaldo, because that's when obviously things go sideways. The Ralph Ragnick conversation of this club needs open heart surgery. He was pretty damn good before. He's been pretty damn good after. The conversation for Erik ten Hag. That's, 22 million he's made in the last couple of months.
Good lads. Good lads.
Oof. And then ultimately, God, next week against Chelsea, you know what Garnacho's going to come in. You don't think he's going to be up for the pump for you know, Erasmus Højlund goes down to Napoli. He scores even though he missed the sitter.
Great goal though.
By the way, when the Manchester derby was going on, Ederson and Onana were making their debuts in Turkey at the same exact time.
Did you see though that Onana did a howler for a goal? He was voted player of the match, but one of the goals was like fully his fault.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he didn't lay down in the goal this time. Just lay down for no reason. God, I'm oddly gonna miss that guy for some reason. Yeah, listen, I just it's I can remember being in a situation as a player where we had top internationals on the team and our coach, we didn't believe in the tactics. We did not believe in the tactics. Every week he'd put together his plan. We just didn't believe in him. He ended up actually winning like coach of the year. And I can remember like our captain coming in and effectively saying, dismiss everything he said. We know how to play. Like, we know how to play. That's it. We know how to play. So there's an onus and a responsibility on the players.
Strength of character there, Dunny. That's big strength of character to do that.
And despite the system and despite how the manager wants to play, there's still ownership on performance. That's the craziest part with the nuance of this conversation, is we can talk about shape and identity. To his point, to Ruben Amorim's point, we can talk about all these different things and the way they play. And now he's effectively trying to tell us that the other formations were sorry, Tim. Like, you didn't win anything. That's why the managers got fired. Like, so it's not like if I go play a 4-2-3-1 or I play a 4-3-3 or I play a 4-4-2 with a diamond or I play 5-4-1 or 5-2-3, you know, however the interpretation, you know, 3-4-3 with a block 4 centrally. The system shouldn't always dictate wins and losses. There should be responsibility. And to his point, listen, I think, you know, when you go and you see Jeremy Doku smash, you know, try to cut a ball back and it hits Ugarte on the leg and comes back right to him. And then he puts the ball in a spot where, you know, Phil Foden sniffed out a great position. How do you teach that not to happen?
No.
You know, how do you teach a deflection not to happen? How do you teach a Donnarumma save where Embuemo picks out that far post? Because that would have been probably the best goal of the week or the weekend had that ball found the back of the net. So listen, there's a part of me that understands what he's trying to say. But again, Arsenal, Fulham, Grimsby Town, Burnley, Manchester City, the only difference is that it's a 90th plus 7 penalty that Bruno Fernandes is capable of finishing off.
Yeah, so, there was some stat today, Danny. They haven't won a game against a team without getting a penalty or someone sent off for the opposition since March, and that was Leicester under Ruben temporary. You know, so I mean, just like final bit on this, and I want to move us on to something sort of similar and get a bit of your experiences and go back to that story you told about the players taking ownership. 'Cause I think it's really interesting for what I want to ask you. But like, is he going to go? Because I take the point entirely. You said this to me, and Danny Higginbottom said it to me, and I agree with it. I do agree that there's been too many sackings, there's been too much churn, there's been too much changing of philosophy, all that sort of stuff. Like, I think that's absolutely legitimate. I think that's right. But are we now throwing good money after bad with Ruben Amorim, who seems absolutely desperate to leave? We've had at least two pretty well-sourced reports that he has almost wanted to resign at a couple of times during his time there. He clearly is not happy. He's not getting the results. The fans aren't happy. Every observer is baffled by what is happening. And I genuinely think if there wasn't a financial element to this, he would have resigned. But only mad people resign from Premier League jobs. So, like, what's going to happen here? Should he be removed from this post, considering that, again, the original question was, if this was another club and not at the level of Man United, if this was the Sheffield United manager, they get Chris Wilder back in 6 months. If this was if
Chris
Ruben
Wilder
Sellett's
took
record,
training today, by the way.
Yeah, he's back. He's already back for the third time. Like, should they? What I'm saying is, Solskjaer's free. Is he coming back?
Well, so is Jose Mourinho. By the way,
and Ten Hag.
Yeah, and Ten Hag too. By the way, penny for and Louis Van Gaal. Penny for the thoughts of Dan Ashworth. Can you imagine? I mean, the canary in the coal mine's got. If they do sack Ruben Amorim at some point, I wonder when his NDA expires. And
that's a good book.
Yeah, like the real like tug and pull of who he wanted versus who Wilcox and Barada wanted. Upcoming matches: Chelsea at home, at Brentford, Sunderland, away at Liverpool, Brighton, away at Forest, away at Spurs.
That's horrible.
Here's my fear. Here's my fear. We're having this conversation. That's 7 games that we're still having the same conversation. There's the problem with this is that the way that we look at this roster is that this is a roster that should be competing for Europe. Not winning the league. They should be competing for Europe. And I wrote down a couple of notes. Something that I was looking for. The spirit. The urgency, like being machines on the field, having less of the ball, but the secondary battles, managing the game, 1v1s. Body language. I'm looking for all of these elements to try to suggest that it's going in the right direction or that the players are tuning out to what they're saying. And again, you turn over this roster. Who isn't his guy? Who's not his guy? I mean, Bayindir, he could have gone with the goalkeeper. Lemens, Shaw, he's been there forever. De Ligt, Yoro, Mazraoui, Fernandez, Ugarte, Dorgu, Ahmad, Mbuemo, Sesko. He brings on Harry Maguire, Kobe Mainu, Casemiro, Xerxes. Lemens is on the bench. I don't know why he doesn't play. You've got Heaven, you've got Diego Leon, you have Tyler Fredrickson, all kids. And then Lisandro Martinez being back, Mason Mount being back, Cunha being back, Diego Dalot being back. So those 4 players, and you add Kobe Mainu and Casemiro, what's his best team? Well, I mean, that's my question. You got all these guys, and I still have no idea if this was a Champions League final, Europa League final, an FA Cup final, what his best team is.
But on that, Danny, would Nuno know his best team with these 11? Nuno's free. Nuno's a good coach. Would he be able to get better results from this team? I think the answer is yes. I think it's a huge yes.
What would Thomas Frank do with this team? What would Arne Slot do with this team? What would Pep do with this team? Yeah. I can tell you they wouldn't be rigid to just one formation. The modern game. And
why is he doing that, Dunny? Give
I don't
me something
know.
on that.
I don't know.
Why is this?
It's just because that's the way he sees. But I had a conversation with Michael Bradley, who's in the infancy of his coaching career with New York Red Bulls too, who spent time at Salzburg and spent time at RB Leipzig, spent time with Jurgen Klopp. And it's more about, he was saying, like, I come in with an idea of how I interpret the game. He's like, but my role right now is to develop. So I want my kids to go get the opportunity with the first team. And I also have to know that when the first team players aren't playing and come down, that basically my entire training in a weird way was all for naught, because now I'm introducing these guys that maybe look at it as punishment, maybe look at it as an opportunity. So I have to be super fluid with how I'm projecting what I want my team to be. So when you hear a guy that's so cavalier about his system of play and that his system's the right way to play, and I'm not going to change the system until I want to change the system, and it's easier to change the managers, to change the players. Well, that's not really true, because we've been changing all of the players because the manager doesn't like the players, whether that's the physical asset or it's the mental capacity of the player, and not being able to create an organic relationship of a player coach environment. And what does that say about his assistants as well? That they're not capable of getting players back on side when these players are frustrated with the way that the manager is handling all of these situations. And I think the only, out of all of them, and it's for obvious reasons, because he's Portuguese and he's the captain, if Bruno turns, that should be the last domino that falls.
Yeah. He's desperate to leave, but not leaving until at least 5 or 6 more losses. So, keep that going. I wanted to talk about something similar, and it goes back to what we started the show with, which was you taking the out of me. Sorry, Tim. And that's the West Ham thing about corners. They are the worst team currently when it comes to defending corners and scoring from corners, by the way, in the Premier League, which is such a change from 3 years ago when they were the best in both metrics. And like I saw something about the opposition. It was like the opposition being good at corners this season is being skewed by the fact that the people at the top are just the teams that have played West Ham. And so it looks like a bunch of teams are good at corners, but they're not. They just played West Ham in the opening 4 weeks.
I just realized you guys have given up the most goals so far this season.
They have, and
11.
On that as well, in terms of shots on target, I read they've conceded 70% of shots on target. On average, it's like about 30% of shots on target go in. So they are smashing metrics that are inexplicable. Like, people do not concede this many of the shots on target unless you don't have a goalkeeper or something insane has happened in one game that skews the whole thing. And so part of it is sort of happenstance and the way things go, and stats can look quite bad in the early part of the season. Across the entire campaign, it might level out, all that, right? But I'm watching this game back. So I didn't watch it live Saturday, as I mentioned. I watched it back on Sunday on 3 times the speed, which is the only way I can stomach watching West Ham games right now. And these corners, right? So they're struggling at corners. And there's a few teams that are struggling at corners, like Man U we've discussed at length, but there's a few that are struggling at the moment in set pieces. Anyone who plays Arsenal has struggled for a couple of years, right? So it's not just a West Ham thing in the kind of macro, but in the micro, I sort of think as a coach, if your team can't defend corners and your team don't score from corners or threaten from corners, then you ain't a good coach. I think it's such an important thing, because football, Dunny, as much as we plan it and as much as we talk about systems and all this sort of stuff and players and whatnot, there's an element of chaos to football, which is why it's such a great sport. And you can plan things and plan setups and where you want people to be. But in the moment, in the game, you could suddenly find yourself out of position, or someone's pulled their hamstring, or the ball's bounced weirdly, or whatever, right? These things happen. It's very American in a way, corners, because you almost for a moment have total control of the game. You've got your ball, you're going to take a corner, and you can work on this all week. They've got the ball, but you know it's going to be delivered in certain ways. You can work on the way you're going to defend it. And if you've got no plan to score from that corner, then I would suggest you're a bad coach. And from the corners West Ham are conceding against Tottenham at the weekend, Thomas Frank is exceptional at corners, by the way. So, you're looking at one of the best in the league against a total dud boob like Potter. But what happened is they're taking these. Do I have to say for boob? I think boob's okay. It depends on the context, I guess. Family show. But in the first half, it was evident they were struggling. But they actually did okay. Not well, but okay. Apart from the goal that got disallowed, that's arguable. They got the ball out. They cleared it out. Thomas Frank clearly noticed there was a huge hole at the back post, and West Ham were going pure zonal marking, which is moronic. Never go pure zonal marking. That's just so stupid that anyone would do it.
You know how I feel. I can't stand it.
It's so, obviously take 2 or 3 key zones, but man to man, win your battle. That is just obvious, right? And there's loads of variables to that, but that's very basic kind of brushstroke. Thomas Frank was like, they're just doing pure zonal. So we just put everyone at the back stick and we score it.
Yeah.
And Polina said that to Roche and Thomas of the Athletic. They published it. Like, that's what he said. It was like, yeah, we just go back stick. They ain't going to follow us. And when that first goal goes in, and I thought it was pretty even before that point in terms of the game itself. West Ham were getting massively outplayed. Tottenham weren't incredible. First goal was always going to be crucial. And they just didn't read it. And it goes back to your point from earlier, which I want you to kind of cook on a little bit. Number one is the coach having this plan, which is stupid and doesn't work because they've been crap from corners all season. But the second bit is, if you're Max Kilman, just unbelievably weak as piss centre half. But if you're that centre half, Danny, this is your position, okay? You're seeing it, you're reading it, right? You're there, you're in the scenario, suddenly thinking, God, I'm not marking anyone. I'm the centre half and I'm not marking anyone. That's a bit rum, isn't it? What's happened here? And you turn left and you see 6 of them at the back post. And it was like three Tottenham players per West Ham defender.
Yeah.
And no one was like, react in the moment. Let's go do something. Tell us a little bit about this scenario and how you fix it.
I don't understand it. I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't. But see, I think this must be like a new age thing. I remember one of the coaches out in Real Salt Lake, they were starting to go into zonal marking, and I was like, why? And he was an old school MLS defender. Because backstory, I always wanted the biggest, strongest attacking player, whether it was the forward or the center back. It was like a battle. It was like mano a mano. Like I got to wrap up, and it was like a little street fight, and I wanted it. Like I was like back alley, like getting in and grabbing and pinching and thumbing in the ribs and all that. Like it was just a battle. My first coach was Clay Koyman, who started for the U.S. men's national team in the 1994 World Cup in Detroit against Switzerland. Like a mean SOB, like handlebar mustache, curly hair. Like he taught me how to battle. Alexi Lawless was my center back partner in New England. I got an elbow in the head the very first training session. He goes, "Get your fucking arms up." Sorry, Tim. And I still like have a cracked skull back here. You can feel it where he got me. But I wanted this. Like I wanted to fight. So anyways, we this was maybe like 7-8 years ago when zonal marking and they're like, well, statistically, and I don't care about statistics. What are we talking about? It will never make sense to me being static, 2-footed, and having an attacking player with a run, momentum, and a 1-footed jump isn't going to beat me every single time, even if I do have a 42-inch vertical leap. Like I could jump back in the day. So this whole idea, like you're responsible and you're responsible and you're responsible. Yeah, that's great. But here comes this guy flying out of nowhere, bat out of hell, and he just jumps you. So it's really stupid is how I view it. Even though everybody will say, well, the data tells us. And I was like, no, man, let's go battle mano a mano. Like I want to, like, you're not scoring. No chance. See, now I'm being nice to you, Tim. I'm trying to hold it. You're welcome.
We've done quite a lot. We've done quite a lot now.
You started it.
He did say boob was fine. He's texted me saying boob is fine. So that's the important thing.
Free the boobs.
We are happy with boob. Tim loves boob.
He's freed the boobs from any censure. But yeah, listen, I don't get it. But by the way, like the moment, like even on set pieces or any of this stuff, like, okay, they're going to flood 3 guys. We got to hold a line. Well, that's fine, but pass down. Like, what are you talking about? Pass down. Get touch tight. Get goal side. Even dig your back into the guy at the last second.
Defend.
Do whatever.
Love defending. Love it.
It's why I sent you the message immediately. Of course, I was poking the bear, but I was dumbfounded. I was dumbfounded that there were multiple set pieces and corners where there's just this spatial responsibility. I'm like, Dilbers, you got 4 people at the back post that are completely unmarked. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. Drives me crazy.
I've never heard Dilbers. I enjoyed Dilbers.
Yeah,
Is that a common one? Or did you just come up with that? It's good.
No, it's every once in a while you're being a Dilber. Like
Dilbers.
Yeah.
I've never heard it.
Yeah, you're being a Dilber. Yeah.
One other Premier League thing that I wanted to ask you, kind of MLS bits, because I got to ask you about Thomas Muller because I love him so much. It wasn't Big Ange. It will be a Big Ange at some point, I'm sure. It was Nick Woltemade. So again, it's thematic for today's program. Firstly, he looks like someone stretched out 1981 Rudy Vuller, which I'm super into.
That's really
super
good.
Into it.
Yeah.
Just
highlights.
The highlights, the curl, the tash, all of it. Spectacular. Number 2, giant lanky striker with a long sleeve shirt is just dreamy to me. It's so good. It's so perfect.
It's crouchy. Yeah.
It's bring back the long sleeve shirt, bring back the perm and the tash. It's all back. And also coming back is the giant striker. And I loved his goal against Wolves so much. I was thinking a bit about the Man U game and thinking about Nicholas Füllkrug and thinking about, right, all these guys. Füllkrug's in front of him for Germany, by the way, so not for long. But like just the way Jacob Murphy, who I think low-key is one of the best players in the league, like he is just
So good.
so clever, so good, so versatile, keeping everyone out of the team when no one saw it coming. And against Wolves, like Newcastle hadn't won in like 10 or something, like quite a bad run they'd been on. And they've got Woltemade coming in, who's essentially the Isak replacement, different sort of player in lots of ways. Looks a bit ungainly and whatnot, but he's not ungainly, but looks it because he's tall. And Murphy looks up and he's a bit like, I'm gonna cross this fucking ball. Sorry, Tim. And the amount of times they don't do it, it drives me up the wall. Like Man U didn't cross the Sesko, West Ham don't cross the Füllkrug. They're giant guys who can head a ball.
Gyökeres kept scoring.
Cross to these guys, cross to Haaland, cross to Gyökeres, put it on their head and do it again and again and again. And the way it was hung up in the air, and to the corner conversation from a minute ago, Walter Marder's got the run. Agbadu's not a bad centre half. He hasn't got hope in hell of getting anywhere near this ball. And there was something about it, and that wider context as well of long throws being back, a physicality being back, the way sort of the only way to challenge Paris Saint-Germain and their technical ability is to throw it in long. Newcastle, Barcelona Thursday. Giant man against a team full of proper. Is that allowed? I don't know. Sorry, Tim. Small people, whatever. It's going to be unbelievable. And there's something about that, Dunny. I hope people take that lesson. Cross to the big guy's back, and I'm into it.
Yeah, no, I was watching his goal. I was watching Joker's goals, and I was thinking to myself, Sesko, like I'd love for you to score a goal. Love at any point. That'd be nice. Be nice. Oh, and then Erling Haaland scored 2 goals. I was like, oh, cool. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Top stuff.
Fun.
Anyway, I loved it. Let me do some MLS with you. I wanted to start with Thomas Muller, who scored a hat-trick this weekend in a 7-0 pumping for the Whitecaps against Philadelphia Union. This is one of those ones where, and this is why I'd love to get your view on some of the players that have come and sort of been a bit retirement-y, and others that look like they could play for another 10 years. I think he could play till he's 50, Thomas Muller, because he's just, and we spoke about it on debut, right? So intelligent. He's an organizer. He's going to be Bayern Munich manager at some point in his life if he wants to do that, because he's just so clever. And I just think he is so switched on and bought in. And it's a perfect signing for a season that started incredibly. He's having a bit of a wobble. And now he's a bit like, he just looks right in this team at this time. And I'm so happy that he's hitting the ground running.
Yeah, and hopefully Ryan Gauld gets back. Brian White, Sebastian Berhalter, Kubas sitting in the pocket. They've got Jalen. They've got some really good players. And they've had a good run this season. Remember, people I think forget that they also went to CONCACAF Champions Cup final and allegedly suffered a bit of food poisoning down there, which maybe could have affected the final. But listen, they've done a great job. I was able to catch up with Sebastian Berhalter for a quick second, and he was talking about the influence already and what a great guy he is in the locker room and how special that experience is going to be. But yeah, listen, there's nuance to it, right? Bradley Carnell and Philadelphia are getting prepped for a U.S. Open Cup. So a little bit a turnover, the mindset psychologically of flying across the country, playing on an artificial surface. The good news is that Vancouver's got their fan base back. They're reinvigorated. They're flying right now. They're going to be one of the teams that nobody wants to play against in the playoffs. So it was a night of huge goal scoring. And probably the up 5-0 Columbus Crew on the road at Atlanta.
Yeah,
and then
tell us about that. That looked mad.
It was. And then they got a goal for Miguel Almiron's penalty spot in the dying moment of the first half. In the second half, they scored a couple of goals. They could have scored a game-tying goal. They had 2 great chances. They ended up losing 5-4. I was saying, where do you kind of weigh the benefit of super mad and frustrated, which is probably Wilfred Nancy after giving up the amount of goals, versus super excited and happy about the way they responded, which probably Ronnie Dyla, considering they were down 5, they'd given up 5 goals in the first half. Dean Smith and David Tepper doing the Poznan during Pepas in the 3-0 win of Charlotte over Inter Miami. Kalina stands his ground on a Panenka, saves a Lionel Messi penalty. I think that's 9 games unbeaten now for Charlotte. They've got some great momentum. And theoretically, all these games in hand for Inter Miami, LAFC, and Seattle. Inter Miami, they rotated. They drew at DC United. a couple of days ago. So they're they got 3 games in hand, but that's 9 points. And that means they're in second place. Well, as we saw, that doesn't really mean anything when you're actually having to play the game. And I do have a theory that I think that this season, one of the differences between last year and this year is that players are now becoming numb or immune to the Messi effect, meaning that the first time they played Lionel Messi and Suarez and Rodrigo de Paul and all these guys, Busquets and Jordi Alba, it was like the shock and awe where Miami wins the game before they walk out of the tunnel. I think now that they've played against them and these guys are heroes and villains at the same time, I think there's more of like a numbness to who they are. And I think that's why you're seeing Inter Miami, struggle with some of these results this year against teams specific to the Eastern Conference that they've played 3 or 4 times now that Messi's been in Miami.
Yeah, I think your point on Miami is really interesting. I watched a bit of the Charlotte game, and the Dean Smith Poznan was excellent. Suspended, but in the owner's kind of box in the leather seats doing the Poznan it's so good. I'm pleased with Dean Smith. I think he's a good guy. But like there was a bit in the pre-game, to your point about Lionel Messi and the sort of sheen wearing off maybe a little bit, or maybe the fact that Inter Miami are such villains, something else you mentioned sort of previously to a lot of people, that Wilf Zaha, who is I just love him so much. And I'm trying to catch up with Charlotte games to see how he's getting on. I know it's been a little bit hit and miss and a lot of like talking about himself in the third person, which is just, you can do if you're Wilf Zaha, I guess. But there was a bit where they're doing the pre-game handshake and people are still a little bit like, oh, I'm shaking Lionel Messi's hand, whether it's, conscious or not. But Wilf Zaha very much treated like you're shaking the hand of Wilf. Like he's got that Zlatan
You've touched the
sort of
Wilf
vibe.
Yeah.
Yes, you're welcome, Lionel. Things like that. And just give us a word on Wilf Zaha. Is he doing all right? I mean, is he talismanic for him?
Yeah, talismanic, a bit temperamental. Everything that he was at Palace that we've seen throughout the course of his career. Listen, I think he probably walks to the beat of a different drummer than a majority of us. Insanely talented. When he's on, is on. He probably thinks that he deserves more respect than maybe some of the other opponents give him, and that's fine. But he's outside of being temperamental with the fan base. Like I think it was like game 3 or game 4 in the beginning of the season. He came out post match and referred to himself in the third person and was kind of talking about some of the heat he was taking from the fan base, and it wasn't really there. So that got that was some of the things that we were going to be interested to see how he kind of worked through. He's dynamic in small spaces. He beats his players regularly 1v1. He's been a good addition. But Toklamati, I think people forget that he had kind of pushed Patrick Agiman, the U.S. international, to the bench before he made his move to Derby County. I think Ashley Westwood has been phenomenal. He's available each and every game. I think after 2 years, he's only missed 1 match, and that's because of yellow card suspension. So he's been great, and Tim Ream playing as a natural center back, has been important. So yeah, they've done a lot, but I think Wilf had to very quickly understand that in this league, there was going to be certain movements that he was going to be responsible on the defensive side. But when he's on the ball, he's certainly special.
MLS Cup potential in the mix for you?
Instinctually, I say no, but I know if I do say that, that'll come back to haunt me because there is something about this team.
Clip it, Tim. Clip it.
There's something about this team that I can't really put my finger on. They're just really, really solid right now. And, you manufacture that type of momentum, they're a tough team to knock out.
How many rounds we got left till playoffs?
I think it's 6 games left.
6 games?
I believe 6 games.
Inter Miami got more and some have got less, something like that. It's like
so some are on 26, 27 games, so 34 games.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well, we'll see. If you're going to hit form, do it now. That's the right thing to do. As we have on today's podcast. Dunny, what a pleasure. We did well there, considering we were just, again, slagging off West Ham and Man United for the majority of the show. We used to enjoy doing this.
Yeah,
we used to be in Europe. And now we're about to get murdered by Crystal Palace. Apparently we're worse than Crystal Palace now.
Crystal Palace is really good.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Brian Dunseth over there. I'm Tom Rennie. Tim Horsey produced the program. It's Week in the Tackle. We'll see you next time.